What do you do when the habits that you thought were helping you are actually hurting you? My guest today has lived through that harsh reality and recognized a change that had to be made. Find out what she discovered on the other side. Welcome to Her Next Chapter, the show that helps women prepare for, work through, and thrive in life's most meaningful transitions. I'm your host, Karen Maurer, a financial advisor and partner with Krilogy here in St. Louis. I work with women and couples who want to prepare for changing seasons in life by planning, investing, and stewarding their wealth with intention. This type of planning can smooth out the bumpy road as we navigate life, but we also know that emotional stability and a clear identity is just as important. Today, we're exploring what it means to navigate a release of long-standing habits, rebuild identity, and walk in a deeper connection with yourself and with God. I'm honored to introduce Michelle Charbonnier. Michelle is a guide for intentional living, a therapist, and a speaker who helps her clients release unhealthy habits, navigate through change. Your story, Michelle, is a lifeline for anyone who is navigating major life changes, especially those who often feel the pressure to hold it all together. And we know a lot of us feel that pressure all the time. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Your professional transition was profound. You became sober and stepped into a season that required releasing long-standing habits and facing yourself honestly, without the coping mechanisms you'd rely on for years. Would you be willing to share that story with us?
Absolutely. I started using drugs and alcohol really young before high school. I started experimenting, and looking back, I see that I was impulsive, I was sensation seeking, and I was just curious. I had a great childhood. It wasn't there was no trauma or anything to be like, oh, this is why she's doing it.
Okay.
I was impulsive and curious.
Sure.
And so I started experimenting and I started partying, and it just really spoke to me, that whole lifestyle. So throughout high school and throughout college, lots of partying, lots of dating the bad guys, lots of drug use. Marijuana became daily almost instantly. By the time I was in high school, marijuana was a daily use for me. And it was just constantly searching for the next party, the next high, the next boy, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
In college, it became a real issue with stimulants. By the time I was 21, crack cocaine became prevalent in my life. I finished my bachelor's program and started a master's program, which I eventually dropped out of because of the addiction.
Uh-huh.
And the stimulant use changed over time, and I eventually gave them up altogether. And I would say that was probably by the age of 27, 28 years old.
What made you give up the stimulants?
I just knew how bad it was. 2 years of smoking crack every day wore on me. That's when I dropped out of my master's program, and my life became unmanageable with that. And so it wasn't quick. I didn't just give it up overnight. It was slowly titrating down and doing less harmful drugs that were stimulants.
But still using other types of cocaine,
Yes.
other types of
Marijuana and alcohol. Yep. So the stimulant use completely gave that up. The marijuana and alcohol were still there. They were still problematic. The marijuana was every day. And I wasn't the person that just smoked weed at night to fall asleep. I was the person who smoked weed in the morning before I got out of bed. And then I smoked weed on my way to work, and I smoked weed on my lunch break, and I smoked weed on my way home. It was all day, every day. By the age of 33, the marijuana use had become so problematic that it really weared on my mental health.
Is that something you recognized on your own, or
it was
were
hard
other people
not to
bringing
recognize
it to your attention?
I couldn't not recognize it because it turned out to be a complete mental breakdown. I stopped functioning. I stopped working. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I wasn't driving. I wasn't making decisions. And I had been in relationship with a psychiatrist and a counselor since my college days.
Okay.
So I had them there guiding me.
You had a resource.
Yeah, yeah. But it was probably close to 6 months of really just hell. Like, it was miserable. I stopped the marijuana use, and then I started drinking every day because 20 years of smoking weed every day, I didn't know what else to do. I needed something.
Mm-hmm.
And so the alcohol, I spent about 6 weeks where I was just drunk.
Yeah.
That didn't turn out well. And woke up one day after a really bad night and spending about 24 hours of just vomiting and being miserable. And I was like, I have to do something different.
Wow. So you really just found the strength from within, or recognized it from within. Were you living on your own at the time?
I was. I
Okay.
had my own home, paid my mortgage, went to work,
Okay.
did
So
what you're
held
supposed
down
to
a
do.
job and appeared to be a, person functioning and contributing to society.
Absolutely.
So, and do you think other people knew and recognized this, or like, did you have everybody fooled, or in something you kept secret, or was it very obvious?
I never had the weed use. Like, everybody knew I was a pothead, right? Like, that was known. Only the people closest to me knew when I started to have the breakdown. The people I was working with, my family, like the people, my dearest friends, those were the only people that saw that. Those were the only people I let in. I don't think before that happened, I don't think anybody would have said, she's on a dark path. She's going down the wrong path. She has a problem.
Okay. So you recognize this in yourself, and you recognize that you want change,
Mhm.
which of course is the most courageous step in the whole process, right?
Yeah.
So how did you then create the environment that you needed to make the changes that you wanted to make?
I went to an intensive outpatient program. So I did really intense therapy work
Just checked yourself in and said, I need to do
I need
this.
this. Yep.
Wow. The bravery and
Yeah.
the courage. I bet you remember those moments walking through those doors.
Yes. I was so miserable that it was like, I was to the point of like, somebody just tell me what to do to feel better, because I feel horrible. And I
Okay.
know my life has changed. I don't, it was really this point of like, I don't know how to manage my own life anymore. Other
Right.
people, please start telling me.
Well, and you weren't. The drugs and alcohol
Right.
were in control,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Oh, so you are in now what we call the messy middle. You've
Mhm.
gone, you're making the effort to say goodbye to the past, going through this transition that you chose to step into, and you're in this messy middle here at rehab. What's
Mhm.
that look like for you? What kind of tools did you grab onto to get you through this transition?
In the early days, it was the most basic task that the counselors were giving me. It was writing down 3 goals for the next day, which were maybe take a shower, make my bed, eat
Brush your
something.
teeth.
Yep. Those were the things that really kind of carried me through those early weeks.
So just those little successes and those new habits,
Mhm.
saying goodbye to the old habits and starting something new.
Yeah. So I did the program, completed it. And typically those programs people complete in 2 to 3 months. I completed it in 3 weeks because I was already not working, and I was so miserable that they were like, you can come 2 or 3 times a week. And I was like, I'll be here every day if that's okay with you. And they were like, yeah.
Because you're an overachiever.
Yeah. Yeah.
That worked in your favor,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I'm like, let's get this done. After that, I returned to my therapist and my psychiatrist, and I knew everything had to change. Like, I knew there had to be lots of changes for me. So I started looking for community that I never had before. That's when I started going to church. I joined a small group, which was pivotal. That gave me the community I needed, where I was able to talk about life and not necessarily constantly focus on like the not drinking and the not using weed.
So were these other people that were also addicts who had been through
No.
same experience, just other people that were the type of people that you wanted to grow into being?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So to attempt to be around like-minded people and people that were what you were aspiring to be.
Yeah. People
Okay.
that wanted to have deep conversations and
Right.
talk about life and theory and all that.
Thoughtful and
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
And so joining the church group and joining this small group, what did that do for you? Gave you new routine, I assume.
It gave me new routine. Routine was so key early on. It gave me new routine. It gave me purpose. It gave me community.
Yeah.
And it in some way, though I had my therapist, it also held me accountable, right? I had people that were living differently than what I had previously lived and how I, were living the way I wanted to live. And so it held me to that standard then.
So before we move forward to the next step that you took in all of this, I've heard the statistic that people who go through some type of rehabilitation program, that it's only successful the first time, like 20% of the time. Did you just went once?
Mhm.
So not just, but you went
Yeah.
once. What do you attribute to the fact that you're part of that 20%?
I think mine was, again, like, if I wasn't in so much mental distress, which then, like, the mental distress, the anxiety and the depression, which manifested physically for me. Physically,
Really?
for those 6 months, I felt like I was crawling out of my skin, right? If that like, I didn't wanna go back to that. It's almost like eating something you're allergic to and being like, "I never want to have that allergic reaction again,
Okay.
so I'm not gonna do it."
Okay.
So I felt like that. I've always said, like, this was all God, like, God's hand was on all of this, and that was the only way God was gonna get me sober, because I
Made it
was
so bad that you
wouldn't
just
go
don't
back
want to go
because
anywhere
I was
near
so
it.
hard-headed,
Okay. Wow.
so hard-headed.
But what clarity now to look back on that with and to say, oh, now I see exactly what was going on.
Mhm.
So now you've got your wonderful support, you've got new habits, you're eventually healing and feeling
Mhm.
better and feeling more like the person you want to be.
Yeah.
Now, what did you do with that from a career perspective?
Yeah. So at the church, I, my previous career was, I was in insurance. I was, marketing, office management, that kind of stuff. And the church had asked me, they knew my story and asked me if I would lead a recovery support group at the church for people struggling with drug or alcohol use.
Wow.
And so I was like, yeah, I'd love to. So I started doing that, and I loved it so much that I sought out more opportunity to help more people. And so I knew somebody that had founded a nonprofit and connected with them and started volunteering at this nonprofit. And that propelled me into a whole new career. So from there, started volunteering, because at the time the nonprofit was very small, very little funding, nobody was paid. Eventually they got funding, and I was one of the first employees they hired. I'm now executive director. I run the entire
Wow.
program. One of the co-founders of the nonprofit was a therapist at the time and said, "You need to be a therapist," and took me to where he practiced, where I got great mentors and supervisors, got credentialed, got my master's. So now I practice therapy and mental health. I specialize with drug and alcohol use, but
And that's
do
all
mental health.
happened over how many years?
8
What
years.
time frame? Wow.
8 years. Like, it's been a huge
Amazing.
transformation.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me about the nonprofit that you're now executive director of.
It's MONetwork. We're a recovery community center in St. Louis. We're in South City. We are boots on the ground. We help people who use drugs. It's a drop-in center where people can come in and get resources for treatment. They can get safe supplies. They can get wound care. They can take a nap. They can do their laundry. A lot of the people we serve are unhoused. And then we do street outreach. So we're in the streets downtown St. Louis and North City, taking the same services there.
And I assume there's some type of group therapy or
We do group, yep.
individual.
We have, most of the staff are peers. And so we don't offer therapy there, but we refer out to that. But most of them are certified peers. So you can work one-on-one with a peer. And then we do different types of groups, family support groups, LGBTQ plus support groups, all kinds of groups.
Wow, what a resource.
Yeah.
Do you find that in St. Louis there is a lot of good resources, or do you find that we're lacking?
We're lacking.
Yes.
It's unfortunate. St. Louis lacks a lot of solid resources, whether for the underserved population or for people that have the resources. There's just not good resources.
That's a shame. It's so needed. And what I love about this organization is it's not that people are stepping through the door and you're going to force them through a transition that they're not ready to make.
Yeah.
It's supporting them in the healthiest way that you can, keeping them healthy, keeping them safe, hopefully getting a roof over their head. And I assume by nature, they see you, they hear your story, so they know it can be done.
Yeah.
And I mean, what an inspiration you must be. And you see the same people over and over. So you've built relationships with these people.
Yes. It's amazing because it's really about radical love, meeting people where they're at and letting them know that they're loved and valued right there and that they're capable of change, because a lot of people lack that within themselves.
Do you feel that that was lacking for you or not necessarily?
Yes. So in my own personal journey through like self-inquiry work and understanding my own issues, I've realized that like the core of my issues was a lack of self-worth. I didn't see myself as worthy of love, worthy of a good life, worthy of living a healthy life.
Right, right. And so therefore, whatever choices you made didn't really matter. And there wasn't that thought. So that brings up a really interesting point, because as we talk about preparing for transitions, whether it be financially or emotionally, one of the things that is so important is to have clarity as to who you are, so that when you are stopped dead in your tracks by some type of transition, it's okay, who am I? And so what is the right path for me to go forward?
Right.
So if for example, it's a death in the family, okay, who am I? Am I the person that's going to go over here and get drunk for a week because this person passed away? Or am I going to go over here and find a way to support the immediate family? Or do I need to go over here and make baked goods? And having that clarity ahead of time helps make that transition smoother and healthier for you and for everyone. So I love that you're now in a position to provide that safety to people as they're ready, when they're ready to move through that transition.
Yes.
And I think knowing that you are supported and that you're loved. And I think too, to bring God into the equation, that's transformational for the people that are ready to accept that into their lives.
Yes.
And sometimes I think if people even aren't ready to, if the right person just happens to provide the right opportunity, it just changes and opens doors. So how is your church integrated with this story? Or how have you been able to pull that into your story?
Yeah. So I'm certified as a Christian mental health coach. So that's something that I really value. I always love when clients come to me for therapy and they're interested in that. And not all my clients are, which is totally fine. But when they are, we have great conversation around that. But with church, I've grown that community. A friend and I started a singles group there, so a Bible study group. I have really founded like the faith being an important part of the community. And I have various communities, right? But like growing that with intention has been important to me in my life.
How did you find these communities, the ones that you didn't create yourself? Or did you find that you had to create what you wanted?
I think it's both. Her and I saw the need for a singles community within our church. And so we created it because nobody else was doing it. But outside of going to the church and finding a group there that I aligned with, I sought out opportunities of things I had interest in or enjoyed doing and built community there. So yoga has always been important to me. I was always curious to learn yoga and to study it. So I went through teacher training and found community there. And those are people that I'm still in deep relationships with. I've also explored like women empowering women type organizations where it's like, I love meeting other women, connecting, networking. So those types of organizations. So things that I have interest in, or like hiking. I love to hike. So let's find a hiking group,
right,
and meet people that way.
I love Meetup.
Yes.
And I think it's amazing to me how many people have not heard of it, but Meetup is a website where you can take something you're passionate about and find other like-minded people. And it's not a dating site, and it's a no pressure, no judgment. You know, if you love chocolate, there's a chocolate group or a hiking group, or you love to knit and there's a knitting group. And it's such a great way to meet other like-minded people that share
Yes.
your hobbies and kind of fill that space that maybe otherwise was being filled with bad choices or
Mhm.
loneliness, which then can often lead to bad choices.
Mhm.
So I find what I love about your story, though, is that you did the work. You didn't just shift and say, okay, I'm going to make myself so busy with church and counseling and doing all of this that I don't really know who I am at this point. I mean, in between that gap, you did the really brave, strong work of looking inside and saying, who am I? Who do I want to be? And now where do I go find those people?
Mhm.
How difficult was that?
It was difficult. It was scary, right? It was
Scary.
really
Yeah.
scary. Um, and at the same time, like I said, before I got sober, I had been in a relationship with a therapist and a psychiatrist for 20 years probably. So I had some level of value there in that type of a relationship.
Hmm.
But in sobriety, I have found it even more important to have those people, not just a therapist or a coach, but like your community of people that really help you look within yourself. Why do these patterns keep happening? Why do these unhealthy habits come up? What's within me? What's going on? I always say, like, as a therapist or a guide, I'm a mirror. I'm just here to hold a mirror for somebody to see themselves clearly because we struggle to see ourselves clearly.
Right.
And so having that whole community of people in different varieties, church groups, yoga, you know, within my network of therapy, all of that was so important to then come into an understanding of who I am and what I value and who I'm not.
Right. And that's just as important as who
Mhm.
you are.
Because many of us are walking around being who we're not, and we don't even realize it.
Wow. And it's I love the group idea because it forces you, as you said before, to be accountable and to make the time to do that. Because
Mhm.
that's probably the last thing on the list that people want to do. And if we don't have a forced accountability to do it, it probably doesn't get done.
Yeah.
So another way that there's that accountability is to make an appointment to see you
Mhm.
or reach out to you to hear about some of these groups or to come down to the not-for-profit.
Yes.
So if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
So you can find me on social, of course, Facebook, Instagram, and reach out to me there. But if you really want direct contact, go to michellecharbonnier.com. It's my website. It has my coaching offers. It has contact information for me, and you can reach out.
Well, I love your journey and I so appreciate your honesty and openness. It's not something that's easy to share and to be vulnerable. I believe we grow through our vulnerability and we connect with others and show them that yes, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, to be cliche, but great positive things can happen and you can make them happen. To our listeners, please remember that transitions are a part of life. They're going to happen, and we want to be prepared for them. We want to walk through them with intention, and we want to trust that you can thrive in your next chapter. If this conversation brought up any questions about how life transitions intersect with your financial life, with your long term planning, or with the legacy that you're shaping, understanding who you are and who you don't want to be. My team and I help families navigate through those transitions, and we try to provide that clarity and that confidence that you need to make those decisions going forward. I'm Karen Maurer, and this is Her Next Chapter. Thank you again, Michelle.
Thank you.